Have you guys noticed that groceries prices are getting more expensive? And you compare it back to, let's say, 2015, maybe early 2000s. Now, back in March 2020, when the lockdown was issued over for COVID-19, groceries had their price increase a drastic amount. Now, prices started to rise, and the biggest increase came around 2022 when inflation started to erupt and the federal government tightened its monetary policy. Of course, when the lockdown was issued back then, the pandemic caused a major disruption in the food supply chain, and workers were not able to return to farms or factories to produce food that we consume today. Now, certain categories of food, such as meat and vegetables, were short in supply, and worker shortages led to limited production of food, such as baked goods and our cereals in this case. Now, with many countries having their borders closed, it made this disruption of the food supply chain from bad to worse, as the import of food from other countries has been disrupted. So if you think about it, in the United States, which majority of my audience are, like you thought food prices were bad here, just imagine other countries that import like majority of the food. Look at, let's say, Saudi Arabia. Now, the cost of energy, materials, and labor rose to these manufacturers that had no choice but to pass the expenses down to the retailers, and the retailers put it down to us, the consumer. Now, this is combined with the fact that there is a higher demand for food supplies like, let's say, coffee, sugar, meat, and poultry. Fast forward today, now in 2024, based on the data of the US Bureau of Labor Statistics, the CPI food sub-index rose a whopping 25% between the years of 2020 and 2024, and is forecast to go even higher over the years. Now, prices for eating at home are close to 24%, while eating out it's about 25%. So that gap between eating in and eating out, it's becoming closer. Before, it used to be a big difference. Eating at home used to be way cheaper, and now the gap is starting to bridge closer and closer. Now, for prices of meat, poultry, fish, and eggs as a group, and cereals, bakery products increased the fastest by an approximately 26.9% and 27.8%. When you think about it, that is a massive amount. That's like literally 1/4. This sudden increase is also caused by the labor shortages at meat packing plants and drove up meat prices. Now, makers of potato chips and cookies try to curb the increase in prices for their products by reducing the size of their packaging, but maintain at the same price. Now, this is what you call shrinkflation, and I did a video on this before. You can go check it out. So if you don't know what shrinkflation is, time to recap. It's where you can click on my video over here or in my channel or in the description going into detail, but it's basically shrinkflation means that an increasing of prices, but the process of the item shrinking in size or quantity while the prices remain the same. And of course, you can see a lot of egregious practices. For example, ice cream has done an ice cream before. There's many times where certain brands, I'm not gonna name or shame them here, but you open the ice cream, portion of it is missing because they say they like filled it with air like nitrogen, which is obviously BS. But nowadays, it's way smarter for companies to use this trick, as most consumers won't be aware they are providing less, especially when they are used in bigger packaging. Also, most people won't be really thinking about how much actual food there is when they go buy the groceries. Now, just keep it in mind, when you go on to buy food, maybe say you buy a bag of chips, and they try to give out a reason why, like a portion of the bag of chips, you can shake the bag, you can hear the chips, but a portion of it is air. They try to give a reason for it. And sometimes, where is that threshold drawn? That's the main question. What's the threshold that the amount of chips versus the amount of air they put in there to keep the chips fresh is basically, let's call it morally right. That really depends on whatever rule is set. Now, but what about the future? Based on the Economic Research Service for the US Department of Agriculture, the wholesale of pork is predicted to increase about 10.2% and poultry to increase about around 5.2%, give or take. Now, farm eggs increased about 24.4%. That is huge. However, the farm level of fruits was predicted to decrease about 3.3%. So at least fruits and vegetables are partially going down slightly, but in the end, it's still going up overall. It's still trending up. So these trends do suggest that consumers like you and I are going to continue experiencing higher grocery prices for the foreseeable future. While some categories do see a slight relief, but overall, the cost of groceries is expected to remain high because it's how the economy is set up. And when the economy is set up to have around 2% inflation, meaning it's still going up. It's just not going to go up as fast. So a lot of items and food commodities change prices constantly, and with the inflation targeting around 2 to 3% give or take each year, it obviously will never return to the year of 2000. Because I always mention about the year 2000, that's only if we have deflation, which for the US economy and how it's set up is they're not going to let that happen. Maybe you have some type of change of presidency when it's not Democrat or Republican, maybe you have like an independent. But that's for another topic for another day. So food categories and specific items do change constantly for the better or the worse in most cases. But at the same time is, when these prices increase, your income has to increase. And unfortunately, they do not lower the tax, they increase the tax. When they increase the tax, we have even less money. So what do you think about how the economy is doing when it compares to food prices? And by posting this video, the CPI report for inflation of May is going to come out. And personally, I don't think it's going to look too good because there's only so much they can do, and at the same time, they won't do more. And they do more, they say they're overstepping their boundaries, or they basically, let's face it, they're there to make more money from us instead of making their own businesses. While we, as a consumer, have to deal with these higher prices and higher taxes. What do you guys think for how the economy is doing right now, especially food prices? Drop a comment down below, click the like button, and I'll see you guys next time. Make sure to subscribe. Peace.